One of the biggest mistakes is people rush into something and they get a little desperate for something and then they overpay. You're going to either make or lose most of your money when you first acquire the property. The other is some people will be like, yeah, I want to have multiple houses, and they have properties that are sitting vacant year round. You're just wasting money on that property. If you have a property, either be making an income off of it or be using it regularly.
Like an example is if you're the market crashes and people sort of like lose their shirt with their house because it lost value and they had to sell. That's where you could lose. But in reality, in a market like that, the rental market is very, very strong. And so there are other ways to utilize where the market is to make sure you're not.
Yeah. What happens when mortgage rates go up? Fewer people get mortgages. They can't afford mortgages. When mortgage costs go up, more people shift to renting. So there's the only people who lose money are the people who freak out and sell, or the people who freak out because they're going to lose property and overpay.
Do you guys ever consider doing like infomercials like that and motivational speaking about finance, economics, and how to make money?
I've been talking about setting up a proto booth and just lecturing people on the street about all the stupid real estate decisions that they've been making. What do you think of that?
I don't think that's a crazy idea. No. And thank you for plugging the proto booth. But what I'm saying is there is value in, one of my favorite books I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
So it was about how, and I don't have a GED, but it made making money in real estate kind of simple.
Yeah.
I just think there's a huge market for that. And I think you guys need one more show where it's just about, Q&A.
Just you wait.
Yeah, you just wait.
Are you doing that?
Wink.
Okay.
People who are making bad decisions in real estate and just need to be, bailed out somehow.
But it's true. In reality, not everybody has what it takes to become wealthy in real estate. Not everybody has.
You don't think so?
No, because
I believe they do. That's what's the Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
But even when you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you realize somebody has to have the discipline to actually follow through on certain things, have the discipline to, not waste money on a lifestyle that's not going to get you anywhere. Not everybody has that discipline. If somebody is willing to actually do what it takes, anybody could do it. Anybody could be successful in real estate.
So it's just a willingness to do it.
Pretty much. A lot of people don't have the discipline.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's not just a willingness. It's the ability to put aside people will make their impulse buys. Like everybody in the American way is to overspend and buy frivolous things that you don't really need. So if you can discipline yourself, but there's also in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, they talk about ways of putting, as soon as you get your check, put some of the money aside and pay down certain debts and then think ahead. That's the kind of stuff, if you can get in the habit of doing, it's great, because then you're stopping yourself from even taking advantage of that.
Our very first investment, we were 18 years old. We were actually leasing a property right next to the University of Calgary, and we were squatting on the lease because students had been coming and going from this place for like 20 years. The rent hadn't been raised in like 10 years. I think it was $800 a month, and there were 5 bedrooms in there. We actually illegally finished 2 more bedrooms in the basement. So we just framed up walls and put in beds. So now there were 7 students sharing. We didn't own the place, so everything was done just sort of, temporary. But we ended up making enough money on this shared accommodation that was our down payment on our first place that we bought. And then that first place, we rented it, did a shared accommodation there, which paid all of our expenses for the next year. We then took that money and bought another place, and that's how it all started. So instead of us going out and overspending on our own rental, we were okay compromising and doing a shared accommodation.
And the one thing I would say, in the early days, one of the lessons that we learned was we were always looking for a quick buck. We were looking for a quick flip, and we did do a lot of flip properties back before it was popular. But when I look back now, if I was more disciplined, if Jonathan was more disciplined, we would have actually held on to more of those investments, because what those would have been worth as rental properties or whatever now, it would have been ridiculous. We've still done well with what we've grown, but it's a matter of that discipline.
So I think if you don't have to sell, don't sell, right?
Exactly. Why would you? It's like buying a stock. Do you buy high and sell low? No, terrible idea. So the only reason you would need to sell,
unless you're shorting. Oh.
True. The only reason you would need to sell is if you're desperate for the money. So the other thing you can do, which is how a lot of people, buy real estate, is they'll loan against the asset they do have to get another asset, which can also be a good thing because it can make it so that you have the cash you need to do something else, but you don't have to dispose of the existing one. The downside is if there's a complete market crash, that's when you had all these people who wanted to be real estate moguls and they lost their shirt because they over leveraged.
Yeah.
So one piece of advice right now with the way the market's heading.
I would just say you need to sit down and take the time to define what your goal is. If you know what you want down the road, then you can build a path towards that, whether it is holding property, whether it is flipping, whatever it is that you want to do. If you know that path, you can see it and you can follow it slow and steady. If you're just guessing like, I want to be rich, okay, you have nothing laid out to get there. So how are you going to get there?
Yeah, and for me, I'd say every dollar counts, so this is not just in your real estate, but in your lifestyle too, but also in the maintenance of your home. There's so many things you can do that will prolong the life of your asset. And if you don't do those things, inevitably it's going to be 10 times the cost to repair something down the road. So understand how to properly maintain. If you're getting a property, if you can get a property that is maybe a little bit more than you need, but if you know you're going to have a family, if you know you're expanding, don't set yourself up to have to sell and buy another place right away, because that's where you lose all the money to legal fees, real estate commissions, accounting fees. Get a place that you can grow into, because we tried to make so much money in quick flips. We did dozens and dozens of flips when we were younger, and we would make like 30 grand a flip, but we had all the risk. One guy came in and he bought 10 of our properties from us, and all he did is hold on to them for a few years, and he turned around and made a clean $1 million off of the appreciation. The long-term play in real estate is always more successful than the quick flip. So that's the goal. Try not to buy, sell. Get something that you can hold on to.
I love that. Do you guys still
have you ever invested in short-term rentals? Do you play the short-term rental game or not really?
Yeah, we don't do a lot.
We don't personally, but we've got clients that do.
And I've done a little bit of it, and actually my wife and I had a property in Pasadena that we were going to build out to be short-term, but we've changed our plan with what we want to do with that too. Same thing, building long-term rental portfolio. It's exciting to think that you can make more money on short terms, but it's a heck of a lot more work as well. And also in California is tough because there's so many restrictions with rental restrictions and what you can do.
Also one thing to keep in mind with any rentals, always think about, you have to be comfortable with some vacancy. Some people are not comfortable with vacancy. They get desperate and they'll put somebody in who they're like, oh, should I? And it turns out that this person destroys the place. So you have to be okay with a little vacancy to get a good tenant.